If I would rate the summit's success, I would give it a C because it's not a total failure, nor is it a total success. It essentially did just enough on the pressing concerns of the equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, the economic crisis caused by the pandemic, as well as developing countries' debt. But they really didn't take action on the broader, more long term issues that are really critical, things like climate change, things like food insecurity, digital taxation. And what was most striking to me was the fact that human rights were not mentioned at all in the communique. And although the G20's purpose is to be a forum for economic cooperation and coordination, over the past 5 years, it's always included at least a mention of human rights in the communique. And the fact that it didn't so this year, even though it did even in 2016 when China hosted the G20 summit, is quite striking to me. What was also peculiar about the summit was the fact that it was hosted by Saudi Arabia, the first Arab country to host a G20 summit. And it was very much supposed to be a PR opportunity to rehabilitate the image of not only Saudi Arabia, but also its crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS, especially after the controversies over the past few years regarding Saudi Arabia's track record on human rights. Things like the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, the war in Yemen that's led to one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world, according to the UN. But this obviously did not go to plan because the summit took place virtually. This was really an interesting summit for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau because usually the Prime Minister is quite open about his goals going into the summit and his objectives. He communicates them really clearly. And this time there wasn't as much of that communication. I think the Prime Minister was kind of hoping that the summit would fly under the radar just because of how complex and complicated the relationship is between Canada and Saudi Arabia. The fact that it took place virtually was probably helpful to the Prime Minister because he didn't have to think about, how he could interact with the Saudis at the summit and not appear too friendly nor create a diplomatic spat.